What is happening, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video with your boy Thick Whips. Today we are talking about cars and wraps. Should you wrap your car? Now, I have had quite a few cars of mine wrapped before by a local company called Sensational Tint Wraps and Detail, and I have to say that any time that I have wrapped any of these cars, they have turned out very, very good, if not near flawless. But with wrapping cars, depending on the age of the car, condition of the vehicle, and how well the wrap job was done, there are a lot of things to consider and a lot of questions to answer. I'm also going to tell you guys a little bit about the pricing and like what I paid and exactly what you can expect when you get a good wrap job done. So we'll talk about the latest, obviously the E36 M3. This is wrapped in Inozetek Laguna Seca. So another factor that is important to consider when you guys are wrapping a car is the company's film that you are going to be purchasing. There's a lot of different companies out there that make wrap film, like 3M, like Inozetek, like Avery, like Oracle. There's plenty more. I'm just naming a couple. But the type of film that you choose will greatly affect the quality and the outcome of the actual wrap job. So when it comes to this car in particular, you know, this car was in really, really rough shape when I first bought it. It had a lot of body inconsistencies, a lot of paint that was coming off, a lot of paint that was already off. So why am I talking about the paint and the precondition of the vehicle is because the prep work is pretty much everything when it comes to a wrap. It has a lot to do with how well the wrap actually turns out. If you do a really, really good job with your prep work and your wrapping, you can make the car look like paint. I have never had a car of mine personally that was wrapped that didn't look damn near like paint, almost perfect. People still ask me to this day, without like walking up to the car and looking for edges, they ask, is the car painted? Because it literally does look painted. Some of the parts on this car are painted, and we'll talk a little bit about why I did that. But for a wrap job like this, I always have the car prepped and then fully wrapped and then ceramic coated. Now, I didn't do door jambs or anything like that. I kept this one super basic. I just wanted the outside. This is more so like a track focused build, so I didn't think it was really necessary to go like crazy on the wrap. But if you have like a show car, of course, you can go one step further and do your door jambs and things like that to make it look like it's actually painted all the way through. But this car took us about 2 weeks to actually have wrapped. The prep work took far longer because of the condition of the car. Now, the whole front end was in really bad shape. I took the car to the body shop and actually had the hood and the fenders completely sanded down, and then a little bit of body work done, just like Bondo and stuff like that, filler to make sure that it was really nice and smooth. I had a bunch of dents removed, which is also a big thing. People don't realize that anything that you can see on the paint, you will see in the wrap. And just to give you guys like a quick example of what I mean by that, so if you guys look right there, you can sort of see a weird little dent in there. That was me. I actually used body filler to fill that in. It was way worse before. And then, you know, you'll see things like that. If it's not perfect underneath the wrap, any sort of like scratches or abrasions on the paint, you will most definitely see it in the wrap. There's another spot right here that I tried to fix. You can kind of see it in the light right there when I go back and forth. Now, these are obviously not major, and depending on what you're really trying to accomplish with the wrap, you could go super far and make sure the car is absolutely perfect and then wrap it. But for a car like this, I didn't really see it that necessary. I don't consider this like a show car. I just wanted to make it good or good enough. With this car in particular, you know, down the line, I would like to have the car painted. In my opinion, paint will always turn out better than a wrap, but I do think that this car turned out really good. So we actually had to wrap this hood twice because we tried wrapping it before sanding and primering it and doing all the filler work, and it just looked really bad. There was a paint that was fading up here, and you could see all of the marks through the wrap. It looked pretty terrible. But I would say that this car, you know, for what it's worth and what it is, I would say this car is like an 8 or a 9 out of 10 when it comes to the actual wrap job. A lot of that has to do with just the precondition of the car and what it had gone through before I actually wrapped it. To give you guys an idea of what's actually painted on the car, the front bumper is painted, the mirrors are painted, the sunroof delete is painted, and the rear wing is painted, and the side skirts are painted. But aside from that, everything else is wrapped, and it looks pretty good, man. It looks really good. You know, there's like little things like this. You're gonna have a tough time getting in there with any sort of film. You can see the primer, the gray in there, but you're gonna have a really tough time getting in there with an actual film. I guess you could if you really wanted to go that far and take your time on it, but it would take a while, and I don't know if it's necessarily worth it, especially for, you know, what we were doing on this car. Walking around the car to kind of show you guys any inconsistencies, I would say the sides are really, really good. You can see like a little mark right there, which means there's just an inconsistency in the paint. You can see a couple of things on the trunk, which is also just other inconsistencies in the paint. Now the back bumper is probably the telltale sign that this car was wrapped. There's a lot of little divots, pot marks that are in the actual wrap. It's hard to see on camera, but that's why it's really easy to film a car or take pictures of a car that is wrapped and make it look good, because you can kind of hide a lot of the discrepancies, but it's definitely not perfect, you know, and we knew that when we were going into it. We knew that the goal for this car was not to make it absolutely perfect. It was just to make it good enough, but for, you know, 90% of people, this is gonna be a completely fine wrap job. I do have some issues right here, right above the handle. It's pretty gnarly, and that has everything to do with the actual car itself, like the door. We should have sanded this down to make it a little bit smoother, but it is what it is. You know, like I said, this car is gonna eventually get painted. So the car in person, well, and on camera, looks really good. It looks really glossy. I also ceramic coated this car, which helps a ton. I've ceramic coated every wrap job that I've done on any car, and it always makes it look way more glossy. Wrap films just tend to have a bland finish, kind of like a dull finish to them, and you can really tell when it's a wrap versus paint. Especially on this car where I had certain parts that were painted and certain parts that were wrapped, you could see the difference big time, especially on like the side body panels. You know, Inozetek is well known for having like the glossiest wraps in the industry. I will say I enjoy their product. I think it's actually really good. And this is coming from someone who has had quite a few cars wrapped before. It turned out really well. But at the same time, you know, the installer who is actually putting on the wrap film, their experience is really what's gonna give you the best end product. So my buddy Lewis over at Sensational wraps all my cars, and he's been doing it for so long. You know, he wraps all the cars for Underground Racing, DaBaby, the rapper. He wraps all their cars, tons of other people, but that's just to name a couple. So what people expect from him, the level of quality is really, really high, and he has to maintain that. So sometimes the turnaround can take a little bit longer, but that's because he doesn't let things out the door that are half-assed. And you really wanna make sure that you find an installer, especially when you're getting a wrap job done or ceramic coating or detailing, that maintains that level of integrity when it comes to their work. It might cost a little bit more, but if this is what you're looking for, you know, you gotta pay. So we actually wrapped the F30 in 2 different colors. The first wrap color was like a, I think it was by Oracle, was the name of the wrap film, and it was like a khaki green color. That was the first time that I had any car actually wrapped, and it turned out really, really good. And from that moment forward, I kind of like knew that wraps were awesome. Super fun because you could just change the entire car appearance, change the entire vibe of the car, and you didn't have to keep it. So if you didn't love it, you could take it off, you know, a year down the road or whatever. Now, one thing that I will say, you know, when you're wrapping cars, especially this happened with the F30, is if you have any freshly painted items, like so, my F30 was originally silver, and I ended up putting the M Sport body kit on the F30 that was freshly painted, and then we wrapped it. The problem with that is if your painter doesn't like twice or 3 bake the items that are being painted and they don't cure long enough, when you pull off that wrap, which is basically just like a giant sticker, the adhesive can actually pull off the paint on the corners, and you can lose a lot of your paint if you're not careful. So on that first wrap job that we had on the F30, it was that khaki green. I ended up losing paint on the rear bumper, on the side skirts, and the front bumper, which was like a major bummer when we were removing it. But it is part of the game. If you're having things that are freshly painted, I would say make sure that your painter knows how to twice or 3 bake the items so they are good for wrapping. You let them know, hey, I'm going to be wrapping this car. I want to make sure that everything cures right. How long do you recommend that I keep the paint on the car before wrapping it? And how many times do you think that we should, you know, bake the items that are being painted? So after we did the khaki green on the F30, we ended up going to the KPMF film, which was a iridescent red metallic. But this was by far my favorite wrap that I had done to date. I did like the khaki green, but it was more like low key, a little more like under the radar, but the metallic red was like, wow. The car popped so heavy with the metallic red. Easily my favorite color that I've done, especially on the F30. It looked so good. And it had a very nice metallic flake to it. It was super glossy. We took the time to do multiple layers of ceramic coating. It just turned out overall phenomenal. Like, it looked amazing. And so after the F30, I ended up getting an E90 M3 that we wrapped. And when we wrapped the E90 M3, we ended up doing 3M Blue Raspberry, which, if you guys know TJ Hunt, he has his A90 Supra, and it is wrapped in the same color. It is called 3M Blue Raspberry. Now, I will say, as far as 3M film, I thought the 3M turned out the worst out of all of the wrap films that I used. I think personally the best ones out there, KPMF and Inozetek. Those are the two that I've had the best results with. I personally did not think that this car would turn out as good as it did, but this car looks really, really good, especially for the precondition of the car. I think that this turned out really, really good. I thought that the F30 with the KPMF turned out phenomenal. You know, it's also important to be said that when they're doing this, to properly wrap a car, you need to remove body panels. Front bumper has to come off. Headlights have to come out. Mirrors have to come off. The door handles have to come off. Side skirts have to come off. Your rear bumper has to come off. If you have a wing, that has to come off. Taillights, those have to come off. These seals, they have to come off. You have to remove all of those things so you can properly tuck the wrap and not make it look like it was just cut on the body line and you can see paint through it. This is where I see a lot of people who get wraps kind of drop the ball. Or I guess you could say the installer sort of like cuts corners. And these are also the fine details that make or break a good wrap. So all of the corners on this car, everything is tucked. It legitimately looks like paint. You can't see any of the body color through the car except for that little spot on the hood vents right here, which in my opinion is like understandable because I think it would be like ridiculous to go in there and like wrap all those little things. So we let that fly. We totally let that fly. I did think about like painting the inside black or something. I think I'll also get a carbon fiber hood for this car that has some vents in it, and we'll do something cool with like a wrap on it. Leave a little bit of carbon exposed, leave some of it Laguna Seca. You get the idea. But yeah, with this car, you guys, like we had to remove so much stuff. So all of the trim came off, all of the lights came out, the grille came out, the emblems came off. I mean, really anything that is gonna get in the way of you tucking in wrap is gonna have to be removed in order so that film can be tucked properly and it can be a clean install. So like I said, you know, we didn't do the door jambs on this. I just didn't really see it being important, especially with a black car. Like black is always going to be the easiest color to wrap because it doesn't look bad against any other color. It just ends up looking like part of the trim. But what you have to consider is every time that you are removing all of these parts on the car, I mean, that takes like a day in and of itself to remove all of those parts. There's a lot of time and labor that goes into doing a proper wrap. Now, when I say I got the F30 wrapped in a week, that's really, really fast. So as I said, you know, the 3M Blue Raspberry on the E90 just never quite looked that good. The E90 M3 was in really good condition. Like the paint was paint corrected. It was honestly perfect. And so it didn't have much to do with the precondition of the car. It was just the film. The film didn't seem that nice. We had a lot of like glue line issues with that film. Also, the finish of the 3M never quite looked that glossy. It always sort of had like a dull finish to it. No matter what we did. I mean, we heat treated that stuff. We ceramic coated it multiple times. It just never quite looked that good. And I will say, you know, as far as like the Inozetek film, this stuff is like crazy glossy. So in the future, if I am wrapping cars, I'm probably gonna end up sticking with Inozetek because I just think they make really good films. And in addition to that, I really like their colored selections. You know, this is Laguna Seca. That's an OEM BMW color. But the fact that they're picking OEM paint codes and offering them in a wrap, I think is a really, really cool idea. I don't always like to go for like crazy flip color, wild like neochrome. Those types of wraps just personally don't resonate with me. I like to get it like a clean OEM style color. That's just me personally. Some people like really crazy loud wraps, and that's totally cool, but I've always liked how Inozetek has been a little more like OE plus when it comes to the wrap industry. So the E90 was not the best in my opinion. I just didn't, I didn't like the film that much. I thought the color was pretty cool. It was almost like a San Marino, but a little more on like the lighter blue side. And I also really like Alpine White. And so as soon as I had that wrap on, I mean, I didn't have the wrap on for long. I was like, I miss the Alpine White. So I think it was like a month or two later, I ended up going back to the Alpine White. But that is what is so cool about doing wraps. You can change the color of the car, change the vibe, see if you like it. And maybe you're someone like me, you know, who plans on inevitably painting the car. I wasn't 100% on Laguna Seca, but I was pretty certain I was gonna love it. But this honestly just reaffirmed that for me. Now I know for a fact that I wanna paint this car, the entire car, in Laguna Seca because I love it. Even though this was like an E36 OEM paint code, I just think it turned out really good on the E36 platform. This car pulls it off so well. Now I will talk about like my friends' cars. I've seen a lot of different wrapped cars. I've seen really good wraps and I've seen really bad wraps. And I think it always comes down to the film, the installer, and what you're willing to pay and how fast you want it done. So full disclosure, any of my wrap jobs, you know, I'm a partner with Sensational. They sponsor me, they sponsor this channel, they take really good care of me. So I've always gotten my wrap jobs at damn near free or like a really, really good price to where I'm just like paying for the materials and then he goes ahead and handles everything and I help him market his business. Which I will say right now, if you are in the Charlotte, North Carolina area and you need tinting, wrapping, detail done, hit up Sensational Tint Wraps Detail. He does an incredible job. And I think that, you know, a lot of his wrap jobs just sort of speak for themselves. They're really well done. But, you know, I have seen some major fails from other wrap companies and, you know, even locally, like when I'm out at car shows, I'll see like a brand new car that got wrapped. It's always gonna be easier when you're wrapping like a new car. There's no discrepancies in the paint. The film should adhere really well if it's prepped right. It's kind of tough unless you're super inexperienced to make a new car that is wrapped look bad. But as far as pricing on like a really good wrap job, I would say the minimum to have an entire car wrap is gonna be like $3K. I've seen wrap jobs that go over $7K. It just depends on the car, the size, what kind of treatment they want on it, how in-depth they wanna go. Do they want door jambs? Do they want like printed designs on there? There's so much you can do. And they get really expensive really fast. I mean, if we're talking about a 5 to 7K wrap job, to paint a car the proper way, I would say it's probably about 10K to have the entire car painted like properly and have all the bodywork done right and just have it come out like OE perfect. Probably looking at about 10K, maybe even more. So is it worth it to do a wrap? I think so. I think that wraps certainly have their place. I don't think wraps will ever be as good as paint, in my opinion, like a good paint job. But if we were to compare like a 5K wrap job to a 5K paint job, I would definitely go with a 5K wrap job because you're gonna get a much better delivery, a much better product in the end. I think a 5K paint job might be it's sketchy. Depending on where you go, you'd end up like a Mako paint job, right? So that's just sort of how I feel about wraps. You know, there's definitely like a time and a place for them. I obviously didn't wrap the Supra. I didn't wrap the M2. Because I like the colors that I bought the car in. And I think that that's an important thing to note here. If you're looking for a new car, don't buy the new car with the intentions of wrapping it unless you definitely know that like you're getting a killer deal or something, or the paint is in bad condition and you're gonna fix it up anyways down the road. But if you buy like a new car and you're like, oh, well, I'm buying this car just to buy the car, I don't like the color, I'm gonna wrap it, I would probably say like wait it out until you find the color that you do want, because paint is always gonna look so much better than a wrap. This comes down to like how picky you are, you know, and what kind of owner are you. There's a lot of different people out there that couldn't care less. They couldn't care less. They could have glue marks all over and they'd be like, eh, whatever, you know. Put a big sticker on it, let's just change the color and send it. But some people, you know, some people are very picky. But when it comes to this video, you know, I just wanted to give you guys kind of my insight on it because I get a lot of people asking me about wrap questions. Should they paint? Should they wrap? How much does it cost? And that's kind of it, man. That's kind of how I feel about wraps. There's definitely a time and place for them. You know, older cars like this, I'll probably always go for a wrap unless the paint is in really good condition. We've talked a little bit about the E36 M3 that I want to buy next for the channel, and I do actually plan on wrapping that car. Now, the reason that I say that is because, first of all, I wanted an Alpine white E36 M3, and if you know anything about the market and that kind of car right now, good luck finding one at an affordable rate. I'm kind of noticing that the cheaper ones are mostly black or gray. So I would probably shoot for a black one, not totally worrying too much about the paint condition, knowing that I would wrap it in a color that I would want to wrap it in. Now, I'm not going to tell you what color I'm going to wrap it in because it's going to be absolutely sick. And I actually haven't seen an E46 M3 wrapped in this color, but I will say it is going to be an Inozetek film because after the outcome with the E36 M3 and just how good this car looks in this film, yeah, I mean, they won me over for sure. And it's not like they're too expensive. They're definitely an affordable film, but I'm just a fan. I'm a fan of the way it turns out. I'm a fan of their colors, and I think that they're doing a great job. I also do think that KPMF does a really good job with their wrap films as well. So that's kind of my insight on wraps and paint jobs, you guys. You know, it comes down to the ownership, Comes down to what you're looking to do with the car, comes down to how much you're looking to expend. But you can probably expect to spend about 3 to 5K on a really good wrap job, and then, you know, ceramic coating might be included in that as well. Maybe that's something that you want to like work into the deal. But I know with Lewis over at Sensational, he has that as like an option, so you can add in the ceramic. But I think it turned out really good, and ever since we've used this film, I'm a believer of Inozetek. I think it's a fantastic company, fantastic color. Dude, their colors are so good. Like, go look on their website. They have the sickest colors that you can get in wrap films, in my opinion. And I just love like that OEM plus angle. That aligns more with like my style and taste. Anyways, guys, I hope this video helped you out. If you have any questions for me on wraps, leave them down below, or painting, or if you have anything to add, maybe I said something wrong, or maybe you wrapped your car recently and you were quoted a different price, drop those comments down below. Also, make sure you guys check out the Auto Enthusiast Facebook group that I recently created. It's called Thick Whips. Lots of people coming in there, sharing their builds, sharing their social media, sharing their YouTube channels. It's all about growth and helping one another. I'm also working with my partners, my sponsors, to get us discounts on parts exclusively for that group. So you can expect to get deals on parts from my sponsors when you join that group. I'm gonna be dropping a whole bunch of different information on that, but it is fantastic. I mean, it's already blowing up. In the past 48 hours, I think we almost have 300 people in there, and the vibes are high, dude. Like, people have really good vibes in there. Everyone's being super polite. I just love it. It's like, this is what the car community is all about. Helping each other out, gassing each other up, and just sharing great ways to grow on like social media and whatnot. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching the video. Love y'all. See you in the next one. Peace out.